Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 83rd episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian M. Hauser, ad hoc blogger on Twitter, and one of your hosts for the evening. Joining me, as always, is Evan Hill at Evan Hill SEA on Twitter. How you doing, Evan?
I am doing well. I'm bummed we don't get Nathan tonight, but it'll be good. Just the three of us.
I know, like watching his face when you're talking is one of my favorite parts of the show. I often lose track of what you're talking about just because I'm following his reactions. And Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Jeff, how's it going, dude? What's the weather like up there in Alaska?
It's cold, man. It's cold. I was outside a couple of minutes ago. It's like -5 degrees Celsius out here. I'm freezing. I'm jealous of Evan.
Where is Toronto relative to like Alaska?
Very far.
I mean,
Extremely
in terms of like
far.
south, north, like where are you on the
Southeast?
Well, I know geographically, but like I'm talking about how close to the North Pole are you guys, like atmospherically?
Closer than I'd like to admit. But man, I have a bone to pick. You guys probably saw this. The Seahawks Hall of Fame Twitter rankings came out, and I was the only one not listed in the pod group.
You weren't on there?
No.
What happened? I'm
Evan.
I was listed. I'm way too old to get listed on that stuff. No,
I was pissed.
Americans only.
Fine. Maybe I got the check. You got the pod guys. Everyone made it. I didn't make it.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's this tweet? Who sent it?
It was like a unique Twitter account. Jeff, do you even know what it was tagged by, or it was like
by Seahawks Tweet Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I'm like pretty sure somebody made a specific account just for this, Seahawks and it got around.
Tweet Hall of Fame?
HOF, I think maybe. Mina Kimes responded to it.
I'm slowing the whole show down because I want to understand what happened here.
It's like a whole hype video.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's not something I can just see a list of Seahawks?
No, it's like a hype video, and it details each category of finalists and stuff. It's actually kind of impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, you all made it. I didn't.
Well, Jeff,
step up tonight, I guess.
You're in the Hall of Fame of our heart, so
that's what matters.
That's all I strive for, guys.
And it's funny. I always say when I go back, and sometimes I'll listen to the pod, just to make sure how the flow, all those different conversations are going. If there's topics we're missing, and invariably the person who I'm like, man, that was a good point. It's always you, Jeff. Like Evan, I'm like, God. I can't.
Definitely not me.
I can't believe that guy's on this show. I say that every time. And then it's like, Brian, can you just shut up? You talk all the time. Like, just.
I was told by a friend this week I do not talk enough on the.
You don't.
Show.
You got to speak up, man. You're not getting in the Hall of Fame by being silent. You got to shoot your shot.
Yeah, fair. I don't know. Nathan's always trying to be the reasonable one, and Evan's excited. It's hard. I get. I'm like a listener, like everyone else. It's hard to jump in.
Yeah, well, let's get the Canadian, friendliness out of you.
All right, I can be a dick.
Just get you in here with some of your takes. But anyway, guys, we got a decent amount to talk about tonight. It's not exactly the happiest I think any of us have been with the Seahawks for a while. So let's actually start by not talking about the Seahawks. Let's start by talking about some swag, some merch that I think people have been asking for a while, and I'm happy to report is now available. So you see this lovely logo behind me every week, and now you can see it on all sorts of things. Let me take a second, and I'm going to share my screen. We'll see how well this goes. And are you guys able to see this?
Heck yeah, we are.
All right. So this is merchandise now available with the Real Hawk Talk logo. You've got t-shirts, you've got the slim fit, the fitted, you've got posters, you've got wall art. Hell, you could get a comforter with Real Hawk Talk logo on it. And in fact, I think on the apparel side, I didn't really go into enough detail there. I will say that I have gone ahead and purchased this bad boy. It is not this color. I didn't go for this color. I went for denim. I'm really hoping that this turns out to be this color and not like some fake denim, like acid washy thing that's going to look bad. But you've got that. You've got, let's see here. Oops. Screen sharing stopped. What happened? Let's try that again. Here we go. All right. You guys see that again?
Yep.
All right. Let's go back to apparel. So you got the hoodie, you got a lightweight hoodie, you got the classic tee. I also got this tri-blend t-shirt. I'm looking forward to having that. And then you got a lightweight sweatshirt. So
and Brian, do you notice anything missing from the apparel category? Do you notice any type of clothing that is specifically, purposely designated to be missing? Do you notice anything?
I don't get, this is like, I am so clearly off in terms of generational awareness. Why are full zip or any zip hoodies a problem? I don't get it.
Full zip hoodies are the most clear way you can communicate that you're over 55.
That's
in
just
this
not
world.
True though.
It
like,
is
I'm in the tech
100%
sector.
true.
No,
It is 100. It is 100% true. Full zip hoodies are not mature. They're childlike. It's like, oh, you're the little kindergartner that's going to his first day of school, and you got a little Star Wars zip-up hoodie from mommy today.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No. Adults do not wear zipped hoodies. Maybe a quarter zip. Quarter zip, completely appropriate. Full zip, 100% inappropriate.
I'm like flummoxed by this. Jeff, do you have the same take on this?
I don't know if it's an old thing. I didn't know it was an over 50 thing. I didn't think over 50 wore zip-up hoodies. I thought it was just like if you're over, if you're just like over 40. I didn't know it was. I don't know.
It indicates age is what it does, and a lack of youth.
I'm closer to 40 than I am to 20. So
I really like. All I know is I go to work every day, and I work almost exclusively with millennials and some Gen Z even, and they're all wearing full zip hoodies all the time, dude. So I don't know where this, but you have a lot of support on Twitter. I will say, I would not get that color. Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't want
You know what that color is called? I'm 99% sure it's called oatmeal color, and I'm not kidding.
For the record, Cable Thanos asked for white in a sweatshirt. We have white T-shirts. We do not have white sweatshirts. I don't know if you can get any whiter than Cable Thanos wearing a white sweatshirt, but I'm glad that he's not going to be able to do that. He will literally be invisible in the snow if that is the case. So I'm tempted to see what red would look like as a backdrop for this logo. I don't think it would be good.
And my wife is commenting in the chat, I wear a full zip. I'm your wife. Shush your mouth.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I am owned. So
well done, Alex. Well done. So everyone's, I'm sure, dying to know how to get access to this stuff. One, check my timeline. I've got a link to it. I think it's in the Real Hawk Talk timeline. It's definitely in Evan's timeline and some of the other folks' stuff. And then I will be embedding it on the Hawk Blogger website, so you'll be able to get access there. For patrons, some of you will be getting some presents in the mail. It'll take me a little bit of time to work through that, so I can't promise everyone's going to get it quickly, but I'm hoping to get some out. And there's some travel mugs, other pieces. So anyway, you can access the catalog already. And as always, everything that we make the first at least 20,000 go to Ben's fund and to charity. And then anything beyond that, we reinvest into the show, bring on, additional things like this live stream that we spent a bunch of time and money on this year, and other pieces. And we also added a new writer this year. So Derek, I do not know the last name. I don't know if he wants anyone to know the last name, but he is on Twitter. What is his?
Let me pull it up. I got him actually. I got him right now. Derek. So at DERYCK_SG. He just had actually an article, I think, about the Seahawks offense a day or two ago. Definitely go and follow him. We're really excited about the content he's going to be putting out.
Yeah, I mean, he is of the nerd clan. So he's going to be very data centric, but super good guy. Which, I got to be honest, the nerd clan, it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss, dude. Like, there's the nerds that are friendly and like, they'll talk to you and they'll just have an honest conversation. Then there's the nerds that are like the hardcore nerds. And
Nathan's a miss, just to be clear here.
What's that?
Nathan's clearly a miss. Clearly a miss.
I don't know if Nathan can claim a nerd card. I was thinking about this. When has Nathan actually published an article based on data? What Nathan's published has been on film study. He has actually published film breakdown, but I don't think I've seen him do a data-driven article.
I remember one distinct post he made between the relationship between running and its effects on play action. I think he did that in 2016 or 2017.
Okay, well that's his nerd card.
It's been a while.
Pretty expired then. Like
it's been a while.
He has to renew if he's going to do that. But Derek, on the other hand, he is full on. That was one of the best articles I've read on the Seahawks this whole year. Not overselling. Like, I honestly, I learned a lot in it. He talked about trends that we're starting to see in the Seahawks offense. They're passing less on first and second down than they had been. They're also changing like how much they're throwing deep. And there's some question about how teams are playing them. So highly recommend people go and check out hawkblogger.com. Read that article. It's really, really good stuff. And we've actually got another writer we're bringing on. Hopefully we'll see something from him soon. But he's also of the nerd variety. So a lot of good stuff coming together, and always appreciate your guys' support. So patreon.com/hawkblogger. Yeah, let's get into talking about this Rams game. So we had our post game show. I've written my morning after. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but lingering thoughts. Like, a couple days now have passed. I know in general my take has been, yep, sucked, didn't matter that much. Let's move on. Where are you guys at on this? Evan? Let's start with you. Actually, no. Evan, you're in the Hall of Fame. Let's start with the guy that deserves to be there. Jeff.
I'm kind of in the middle of where you are. I was really pissed off Sunday. Like, I was really mad about that game. There was just a lot of troubling things that came out of it. Just the way they played, the way the offense has really had 4 weeks in a row where they just haven't been good. But overall, I think more realistically, it's probably a one-off and it's probably an outlier game. But I think big picture-wise, the Seahawks just right now don't look like they're one of those top-tier teams. I think there's 3 teams clearly in the top tier. I would say it's the Niners, the Saints, and the Ravens. And I think the Seahawks are the step below. It was kind of a reality slap. And I think their schedule the next 2 weeks are perfect for them to kind of turn around. But right now they look like a second-tier good team. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking, I think 3 of the 4 of you had them as the likely team to come out of the NFC. And I think that game might be a wake-up call to us who had that thought that unless they get their offense back on track, they're not quite there yet.
How about you, Evan?
Yeah, I was really disappointed the night of. And honestly, after sleeping on it for a couple of days, I felt a little bit better about it. It just feels like what Jeff said, a one-off. It doesn't feel like this is actually, the stats back this up with how many games we've lost, beyond 7 or 8 points or whatever that fluky stat is. This is just not a consistent issue for the Seahawks under Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson. This is just not we just don't see this typically, and they're typically very competitive in games, at least to the very end. This game, I think, it gets lost on people that divisional games are really, really tough. Even like this Arizona Cardinals game in 2 weeks, people are calling that an automatic dub. Do not. Divisional games are really, really tough. For some reason, they're even more fluky than the average any given Sunday. So I think it's a one-off. I think it's fluky. At the same time, I do think it was disappointing in terms of how unprepared and uninspired they looked. But the reality is this: the next 3 weeks will determine their fate, either a first-round bye or a wild card. So the pressure is on. Last week, it really didn't feel like the pressure was 100% on because they could afford to lose it. They could afford to drop one in relation to their NFC West standings.
And do you get the feeling that they knew that?
I do, and I'll tell you why. I don't know if you guys saw Shaquille Griffin's post-game comments, but he kind of hinted at that. I don't remember the specific words he was using, but it was something along those lines of, hey, the next 3 weeks are really going to, determine the fate of this team. And I should have brought the quote in preparation for the show, but I do think there is some evidence to warrant that.
I do think in the end, the result, as Brian pointed out, I thought his article was really good this week. The result of that game really didn't affect Seattle's playoff position really at all, because to win the division, you're going to have to win week 17. And to get that bye, you're going to have to win week 17, because for Seattle to get that number 1 seed, they probably would have needed San Francisco to drop one of those games. But however, I think there are some troubling things that we should probably talk about. The base defense thing. This is so fucking stupid. Like, they've figured out a way to take their best defender and make him almost uncomfortable. And Joe Fan pointed out a great point about Pete's quote about Ugo Amadi a couple weeks ago, and since then he's played 0 defensive snaps. The fact that they went into a 3-receiver team and a team that dominates the middle of the field and went base heavy, if you do that against San Francisco and Clowney doesn't have the game of his life, they're going to get killed. So they need to play nickel defense like everyone else. This isn't 1984. They gotta get away from that. I don't know. That was my biggest takeaway just from coming back down from that game, because it's not working, and it's almost made Bobby into you tweeted out his PFF rating, Evan, the other day. He is not a top player right now, and I think that's a big part of it.
Do you think that's enough, though? Let's say that they do go to nickel, and let's assume for a second that nickel goes well, that they haven't played Ugo Amadi at all. I really was hoping that was going to show up in this game. They're playing Akeem King, who got 8 snaps or something like that. But let's just say that they do go to nickel. Is that the most important thing? Why is that the thing that you go to first?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's the most important thing, but I think it's very easy to play against Seattle if you can run a certain offense. Mm-hmm. And we saw it earlier in the year, because the Seahawks aren't a good pass rushing team. And if they're not getting home with 4 guys, and when you see their pass rush dry up, they're a really easy team to attack in the middle of the field. And I think against a team that can stretch the field and run 3 receivers, nickel at least puts them in a position where you can defend them. You just put so much stress on your linebackers in that base defense on a team that passes regularly. It's just hard for them because they're not a good pass rushing team. And I thought the middle of the field is exactly where the Rams attacked, and they had no answer to it.
Are you, this is sort of a change in topics, but are you as concerned about the receivers and tight ends as I am? Because that was one of my main takeaways from Sunday night. It was not just, how putrid the offensive line played, but there were some drops, there were some bad miscommunications, and they just looked flat out not in sync. And there were several big drops Malik Turner had one. Jacob Hollister had a huge one on third down. There was obviously the miscommunication on the goal line. And even, taking those players out of the equation, we haven't seen Tyler Lockett be Tyler Lockett for 3 weeks now. And this offense has definitely taken a downturn since we've seen Tyler Lockett sort of decline in the past several weeks. And really, I think the past few weeks have been evidence towards how critical Lockett is towards this offense thriving. Are you as concerned as I am, Brian?
I'm not actually. I look at Tyler Lockett and the injury he had and the illness he had, those were temporary things. And I'm just assuming I do believe that there's a reason to expect he's going to be back. And I think he'll be fine this week. I think he was actually okay even in this past game. I just don't think the offense was good. I think DK Metcalf, I was about to pull up some numbers on him, but, I actually think he's playing quite well overall. And, he's at almost 800 yards now. He's got 50 receptions. He's got 5 touchdowns. If we were to look over his last few games, let's just do that real quick if you don't mind. Last 5 games for DK Metcalf. All right. 6 catches and 9 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. 6 catches in 10 targets for 70 yards. 3 catches and 6 targets for 35. So that's 1 in Philadelphia. We know he didn't have a great day, but passing in general wasn't great that day. Then he's against Minnesota, 6 catches and 7 targets, 75 yards. And against the Rams, 6 catches and 6 targets. So I'll total it up later, but every game, 4 of the last 5 games, he's had at least 6 catches and at least 70 yards. He's doing all right. Especially for a rookie. I think we just need Josh Gordon to get untracked. And I still maybe I'm just completely naive, but I believe that Josh Gordon we're going to see it happen. It's going to click. And all of a sudden it's going to be instead of us saying, oh my gosh, what's the problem with receivers? We're going to be oh my gosh, look at the receivers we've got and look how this is clicking. And I just don't think it's happened quite yet. That's part of what I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks. The Panthers and the Cardinals can try to talk us into them being a threat. And every team in the NFL is a threat. Those defenses are terrible. Sure. And I think that we're going to see the offense look a lot better the next 2 weeks.
And I agree. I think they need to target Josh Gordon more. He looks open a lot. And whenever he does get the ball, he looks pretty comfortable catching it. And I know if you look at the targets, it's still pretty high on Metcalf. But I think in big spots, third downs, they are targeting not their best players too often. And Jacob Hollister had a particularly bad drop last game. They just looked and Malik Turner, he's been pretty his catch rate, Brian's talked about it a lot, but there's been a lot of big plays in the game. You probably want to target guys like Metcalf and Lockett and Gordon over guys like Turner and Hollister
and more. I think
on key moments of the game, I don't know if this is a Russell thing, they're targeting lesser players, and he used to do this with Jermaine Kearse, and he used to do this. They targeted Ricardo Lockett in the final play of the Super Bowl. So I don't know if this is a Russell thing. I don't know if this is a coaching thing, but I think on key moments of the game, David Moore has had some big targets, and he's been their least efficient receiver by a large rate this year. I just think in key moments of the game, I would like to see them targeting their better players. I don't know if the numbers say I'm wrong, but from my perspective,
I think that's a great point. I think where I would agree with you and build on it is, look, I've been a David Moore fan before. I agree that it's not working when they're going to him. And I don't understand why David Moore is getting reps over Josh Gordon. At this point, I would hope that they would be. I don't know if it's coaching thing. They are going to play more. When he's done well, it's not necessarily been the deep balls this year. He had the one against the Vikings, but it's been when they give him the ball in space on quick bubble screens, and then he's able to use his speed and elusiveness to pick up yardage, but they don't do that very often. I think we're getting I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't think that they're doing enough wide receiver screens. Like I used to hate it when they do that to Doug Baldwin. It just seemed like that was not a strength of his, and I just didn't think it was a great play.
Always go for 1 yard.
But like DK Metcalf and David Moore, that is a strength of those guys. And it seems like when they do bubble screens, a lot of times it's like to Tyler Lockett. Like, and I mean, I just don't think that's the best use of those guys.
And Brian, I will follow up on your Metcalf point actually real quick. Pro Football Focus, for what it's worth, gave DK his best receiving grade of the entire season last week. So it's another data point to support your thesis.
Yeah.
And he was head to head with Jalen Ramsey.
It's true.
And I thought I was really impressed with DK. He was open a bunch. But I think honestly, we've been very pro Shoddy this year. I think he kind of needs a get back to the drawing board kind of moment, because it seems like he's kind of lost what made this offense so good. Even if you watch like the first Rams game, they had Will Dissly a lot in that quick game, but it seems like just from a scheme perspective and what Brian was just mentioning about like scheming plays, it seems like and we've talked about this, and Derek's article was great on this because he used the data. They're just dropping deep too much, and that's been the biggest change. And which is weird, it's been correlated with Lockett getting injured and slower. So it's been weird to see them go back to that deep passing game, running more in early downs when they were really having success with a different kind of offense. And I'm not sure what caused the change. I don't know if it's the way they're being defended, but Shoddy needs to adjust because what he's been doing the last 4 weeks isn't playing to the team's strengths.
Yeah, by the way, just to total those numbers for DK Metcalf, and then I want to come back to your point, Jeff. In the last 5 games, 27 catches in 38 targets. So that's a 71% catch rate. And this is a guy that's been under 50% most of the year in his catch rate. And people talk about having drop problems and all that. So 27 catches for 381 yards, over 14 yards a catch, and a touchdown. So yeah, I think he's showing up. But to your point on the Shoddy thing, look, like we talk about this in our chat all the time, guys. Like, where's the quick game? There's a lot of reasons it could be gone. My first thought is I always end up going to like, why are they not calling it? Is there a chance that they are calling it? And there were some shots fired a little bit by the coaching staff this week that maybe Russ isn't throwing it. Like, is it possible that like Russ is, either not seeing it or he wants to throw it deep, or like, what do you guys think's going on there with the lack of utilization of the quick game?
Jeff, you take this one.
Yeah, it's been kind of a strange week where Tyler Lockett first called out the coaches for not calling deep passes. I don't know if that was on purpose, and then you kind of watch the film and it doesn't really prove to be true. And then there was some kind of jabs at Russell, and Russell had that tweet. So
you're breaking up, Jeff.
We lost Jeff in the moment.
Man, this is like old school, like, frozen Jeff. Like he was just talking about how cold it was outside. Really, now he's literally frozen. So,
Jeff, are you?
So,
Jeff, we got you back. Are you there?
Hey, Jeff.
Well, did I leave?
We lost you for the past 30 seconds.
Oh my God! It was working on my screen. Okay, I just said the whole offense just seems a little disconnected from Russell to the losing Will Dissly to the coaching staff. And it's hard to put your finger on one thing, but it does seem, and Derek's numbers pointing this out, they're doing more deep plays. And I think you can really design more, like when they did that run in 2015, there was a lot of design guys open. And like you mentioned the DK screen, I call him decaf. DK screen is a great example of ways you can get easy yards on first down. And he's, as long as he doesn't fumble, he's so good in those kind of plays. Josh Gordon, there's got to be ways you can scheme for him to get quick passes. He's so good at those quick slants. So I don't think it's just Russell. I think there's not a lot of plays where you can say and point out to the coaching staff and say, these are well-designed quick game.
Evan, Russ apparently had a tweet this week. I honestly, my approach to this week has been to be off Seahawks Twitter. almost entirely. I haven't listened.
It hasn't been as bad as you thought.
I
don't think Seahawks Twitter has been as bad as you had expected it to be.
It's not that. It's just that there's nothing I want to hear on it. Like
you just want to forget that game happened.
And it's not even that. It's like there's nothing I want to talk about with that crew right now. And I also don't want to hear about I can't imagine. Maybe I'm wrong, but like sports radio and talking heads about this stuff would just be a lot of like overreactions to this. But anyway, like, so the point being that Russ apparently tweeted something this week, right? Like about people are reading between the lines that maybe he was feeling like he was getting singled out or something. Like, what was it?
It was a tweet about like leaders and whether they focus on the moment or the deficiencies of the flaws in the moment or something that just happened and looking forward to the future and expecting positive results or something. My response to this is simple. This tweet was scheduled on TweetDeck in early August, along with several Bible verses. This is not like, I really don't think Russell is tweeting through his emotions here. I think this is, no. I was all a part of the Cam Chancellor, like, conspiracy theories. Remember when his contract negotiations were going on and Cam was tweeting like little like eyes emojis and other random shit like that? I was neck deep in that and I fully bought into it. I do not believe Russell Wilson is tweeting through his emotions here. I don't even think.
You see it differently, Jeff?
I don't know. A lot of people thought he was taking a shot at the coaches. I think he might just realize he played poorly. And I think he motivates himself in weird ways. And I think he was saying, like, I'm not going to harp on the past. I'm going to use this to build up. And I saw Brock's tweet even. Brock had some, like, weird tweet, like, Russell isn't the MVP anymore. Bobby sucks. Pete needs the coach. And I'm like, I think, like, all the timing of that and some weird Pete comments. And I even had a comment about Russell last game, which probably got misconstrued a little bit. But I think he's hearing some noise. And he always says, oh, I don't hear the noise or whatever. But
and you know what? Why don't I read the tweet since I have it up? Leaders, and I quote, leaders can either waste time on the past hoping and wishing you had done something different, or leaders can choose to spend time focusing on winning the next moment. I choose the latter. #3.
See, that seems pretty clear. It's a message that either he's annoyed with what people are saying or he doesn't think he played very well. And the next moment, which Brian said is against a shit-ass defense, he's going to win it.
Yeah, like that. Let's turn it to that for a second. So, I mean, where do you think the Seahawks go from here? Like, knowing that, this is a team that beat the 49ers in San Francisco, played a game that I think we all believed was their best game of the season, in general, across the team. And then go to Philadelphia, beat the Eagles, beat the Vikings, very complete Vikings team, and they beat them pretty well and were close to blowing them out. And then blew under the Rams. They seem to lose to all the time anyway. Where does the team go from here? Where do you see it happening, Evan?
Yeah, so I think for me, just focusing on the next 2 weeks, I actually think the Seahawks are absolutely going to stomp the Panthers. I don't think, like, Kyle Allen has been a complete tragedy for the Panthers. Like, they expected him to be a lot better, but he has, like, the second worst QBR in the NFL. He's not a threat. He's not a running threat. He can't beat you with his arm. That offense is basically Christian McCaffrey. And Seattle's obsession with the base defense will actually probably play into this matchup pretty well with shutting down Christian McCaffrey, because if you shut down CMC, that offense has nothing. And I just don't see Kyle Allen extending drives and ultimately putting up enough points to beat the Seahawks. So I actually think the Seahawks are going to dominate the Panthers, but at home against the Cardinals in Week 16, my sort of hot take is I think the Seahawks are going to struggle. And I'll tell you why. I think Kyler Murray is better. I think that offense is better than when we last played them in Arizona. And Pete's obsession with the base defense is not a good matchup for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray can throw the ball well, and he is a running threat. He is a dual, threat quarterback. If they choose to, sit back in that base defense, I could see them really having struggles with Kyler Murray. I think Larry Fitzgerald is Larry Fitzgerald. He's still very talented, one of the best receivers in the NFL. They'll ultimately beat the Cardinals, I think, but it's going to be a much closer game than people expect. Then heading into Week 17 is obviously the game of the season, one of the most expensive games in regular season history I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys have been following my tweets on it, but I'm checking every other day, and I think it's $580 to get in the door for that Week 17 game. Like nosebleed seats, $580. So it's thousands of dollars to sit in lower bowl. People are hyped, obviously. It's going to be the matchup of, I think, probably the NFC of the entire season. So it could foreshadow the NFC Championship game. It really could. So that's how I think the next few weeks are going to unfold.
Well, I want to hear from you, Jeff, but I do want to give me a sum up, Evan. Are the Seahawks where are the Seahawks in your estimation? Let's say they win the next two games. Are the Seahawks the team ready to beat the 49ers in Week 17?
Boy. You're not going to like my answer to this. I don't think the Seahawks can do anything in the next 2 weeks that will make me feel any better about the 49ers game.
That's a good way to ask it. Jeff, what about you? How do you feel? The same point. How do you feel going into that game?
Going into the Niners game?
Yeah, what would you need to see? Is there anything you could see that would, give you confidence the Seahawks are going to be set for that game?
I need to see that Ansah is able to come back, and I need to see that Clowney is able to hold up until that point, because the biggest reason they beat San Francisco was Jadeveon Clowney had the game of his life, and he was the best player on the field, and he dominated the game. And if they pass rushed like they did last week or in some of their bad weeks, they got no shot. I think San Francisco is playing. They had that 3-week test where we thought would ruin them, and they did really well during that 3-week stretch. And if they can't rush the passer and throw off Jimmy G, I think it's just going to be a game that's going to be so hard for them to win. So
I'll tell you one thing. I'll call out a couple things that are not related to the Seahawks, guys. But and thanks for the folks that are in the chat doing super chat. We'll get to some of those questions in a second. Not related to the Seahawks, but the 49ers. So I just saw a tweet come out that looks like nose tackle DJ Jones could have season-ending surgery for the 49ers. That guy's legit. He's the one that knocked Hunt over. And people talk about some of the other injury issues in that game. He went out in that game. He had some big plays in this past game against the Saints. And then I think Richard Sherman, there's question about whether he will play again in the regular season.
Did you mention their center that is out for the year?
Richburg or something like that is out for the year. So they've got Quan Williams had a concussion. Don't know how long that's going to keep him out. The thing I'd bring up about that 49ers game is they're going to play the Rams the week before. And one of the hidden benefits of the Rams beating the Seahawks is the Rams think they have a chance of making the playoffs now. And the Rams, their defense has been playing really well. And so, what happens if the 49ers have to expend a lot of energy beating the Rams that week? And what happens if they lose? Who knows? But in either event, they're going to have a really hard game the week before. I don't buy it, Evan. I think that the Cardinals are definitely a harder matchup than the Panthers, but I think you're going to see a 2-week stretch where the Seahawks are going to get well and look really good, and we're going to feel really good about the way they're playing. And then the 49ers game is going to be a massive switch in elevation in terms of the type of competition the Seahawks are going to play. You could either feel good and say, hey, they started to gain confidence the way the Rams did against the Cardinals and then played better against us. Or you can feel oh man, they're gonna be totally out of their depth because they're gonna have been playing. It's playing a weaker team. So I don't know. I think there's some things that could happen outside of Seattle that could impact that game that maybe we're not anticipating. But while we're on this topic, I want to talk about Owen Sullivan's question in Super Chat. He asked, who guards Kittle in Week 17 if you have man-to-man? Jeff, do you have any point of view on that one?
That's a hard one.
Isn't it probably Akeem King?
That's what I was going to say. You're going to have to mix up your looks. You're not going to want to go Akeem King the whole game on him. I'm
sure.
saying you want to use McDougald, you want to use Bobby Wagner on some routes, but this is a thing where if they're in base defense, it's going to be really easy for Kyle Shanahan to scheme against them. Because you saw what he did. They scored 48 points or whatever when their defense completely crapped the bed in New Orleans. And Kittle's a man-child. That guy is the best tight end in the NFL. And if you just go base and they know exactly where all the Seahawks players are going to go, it's going to be easy for him. So Akeem King's a good call-up because if they go more nickel and kind of did what they did with Travis Kelce last year, that was Akeem King's probably best game as a Seahawk ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the George Kittle believer that everybody else is, that he is just like, I mean, I definitely recognize how good of a player he is.
Well, Brian, he's the second best tight end in the NFC West. Let's be very clear.
I like where you're going, dude. I like where you're going. I will just say, like, look, the Saints game, other than that play at the end, the play at the end was great. I mean, it was a great play. He was a non-factor in that game. Like, he was not the reason that they put up all those points. And everyone's like all googly-eyed over Jimmy Garoppolo now because he's been playing better. And guess what? The whole conversation after the Seahawks shut him down is, man, Jimmy Garoppolo is terrible. He's the worst. The Seahawks, like, there's no conversation about what the Seahawks did to him. It can't be both, guys. Either he's really, really good and the Seahawks completely made him look like shit, or he's not very good. And the Seahawks were just one of a bunch of teams that make him look really bad. So I think the Seahawks have what it takes to make him look bad. I think that the offensive line that they ran out there against the Saints, I think the Seahawks shredded that offensive line, specifically Jadeveon Clowney. So I don't know. I'm not. Look, if you ask me to predict right now what's going to happen in Week 17, I think the 49ers are the better team. No one's going to want to hear that. I do believe the 49ers right now are the better team. I think it's going to be hard to beat them twice. That would be my guess. Am I like intimidated by that game? Do I feel like the Seahawks are like really swimming upstream and it'd be really hard for them? Like, no. I think it's like 55-45, in terms of percentage likelihood that the 49ers win that game. But that could easily swing to 50-50 or even go the other direction depending on how things go over the next couple weeks. I'm curious, just looking back, last year when the 49ers played the Seahawks, Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 receptions, George Kittle, 3 catches and 8 targets for 51 yards. In the first game against Seattle, he had 6 catches for 70 yards, no touchdowns in either game. Like, they've played him before. I just don't know. Like, in his rookie year, he had 1 catch for 14 yards and 2 catches for 13 yards. Like, I don't know. I think he's a good blocker. That's the best thing he has going for him.
That's a take. Because people praise him. Oh, sure he is, but like he's been a receiving threat.
Of course he is. But like, I will say, like, I've not watched enough film to say like I know for sure. So, so I'm already like hedging on it. But from what I have seen, I think Will Dissly is just as much of a receiving threat when healthy as George Kittle. I don't think there's a significant gap there. So we'll see. So, and I see the comments in the chat that the 49ers are missing a lot of players. I don't know, guys. I mean, the 49ers got back a lot of players for that game. They've been playing with a lot fewer players before that game. And anyway,
Brian, I do got to stop on the George Kittle thing for a second because otherwise people will roast us, I think. But Pro Football Focus does give him the number 1 ranked receiving grade of all tight ends in the NFL. And it's by a significant margin. Like, I don't think the Seahawks should underestimate that.
Well, if you looked for the before Will Dissly got hurt, he and George Kittle were like within 1 point on receiving grade.
You're right. Will Dissly is actually the 3rd ranked receiver, tight end receiving grade in the NFL. That's obviously with a very low minimum snap threshold, but your point does stand.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, look, I got the other question I got to ask you guys. How much does it matter? How much does Ziggy Ansah's health matter?
I think
Let me put it this way. If his health seriously impacts like the trajectory of this team, they're already fucked.
Why?
I think
they're already fucked. If Ziggy Ansah at age 32, who hasn't done shit all year long and showed up for approximately 1.5 games this year, if the Seahawks are counting on him to make it, aid them in their deep playoff run, they are fucked. That's my take.
Jeff, please.
I agree with what you're saying, and my issue is not with Ziggy. It's what I said earlier in the year, where the Seahawks are a poorly designed group defensively for these kind of situations. And last week you had no Ziggy Ansah, right? Brandon Jackson played 31 snaps. That's 44% of the defensive snaps. When Ziggy Ansah's out, all of a sudden this guy who's a total dud as a pass rusher, the closest thing to like a 0, is playing 44% of defensive snaps. He doesn't do anything well. Rasheem Green played like 50%. Al Woods was playing like 39 snaps. And taking Ziggy Ansah out of the lineup just leaves a glaring hole on this defense. And if Clowney isn't the same guy, it really hurts them. And I don't know how much they're going to use. I'd like to see them use Shaq Griffin more because he complements what Clowney does really well as the speed rusher. And he's going to get thrown around on the ground. But at least he can bring you some juice. But when you're playing Brandon Jackson, 44% of your snaps when Ansah's out, that fucks you.
Yeah, well, I think it matters now, Evan. I don't understand your take at all, other than the fact that you don't like Ziggy Ansah or you're just down on him. The guy's been a top 15 pass rusher the last 2 weeks he played.
In Pro Football Focus?
Pass rush productivity. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy that had 1.5 sacks against the Eagles and should have had 2.5, had a strip sack, also had like 5 or 6 pressures against the Vikings. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it's not 6, but it was a number of pressures against the Vikings. I think he's becoming an important part of that defense. And, I think that especially given that Jadeveon Clowney, he did not look good last game, guys. Like, that was the first time. Like, nobody really looked good in the Rams game on defense, but he looked like he was playing at kind of half speed. And so I'm a little concerned how much he's going to be able to impact.
Well, did you see Pete's comments like this? I think it was either today or yesterday. It seemed a lot more grim, I think, in regards to Clowney. Yeah. It was a little more like he's really hurting, or maybe he didn't say
that's
really.
Exactly what he said.
Okay, yeah, that kind of shot up some red flags or yellow flags in my mind. Is like, ooh, is the pain worsening for him? Because this is an injury where you're basically just playing through pain and managing pain. Is this going to get worse for him? That would not be good.
I mean, that's my most pessimistic part of this team is I think the players and the parts that they really need to stand out. There's some question marks. Clowney, Ansah, there's question marks there. Michael Kendricks, I'm not as worried about, but then you've got Cody Barton, who's also injured. And so now you've got some linebacker things that hopefully, if nothing else, maybe that will force them into more nickel situations.
Please.
Make Jeff happy and the rest of us happy as well. But this team doesn't go anywhere if both Clowney and Ansah are not going to be able to contribute. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see it. So, and meanwhile, the offense has got to get on track. Like, we just lost Rashad Penny for the season, and that was a meaningful loss, right? Like, he was a shot in the arm for the offense while they were struggling to pass the ball and while Chris Carson was fumbling. So, it is fair for people to be a little bit melancholy about the Seahawks right now. I just think that what I need to see is some confidence that the players that matter start playing better and play in a way that I believe they'll stay on the field. So that's Russell, that's Clowney, that's Ansah. Those are the guys, that I really want to see start to step up.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, like, top concern is Russell Wilson needs to start playing at an elite level again. And I know that's a super high expectation, but he's, the top paid player in the league, and it's who he is. But this team is not good enough to overcome just a good Russell Wilson or a mediocre Russell Wilson. For this team to be competitive, not competitive, but make a deep playoff run, Russell Wilson needs to be playing at an MVP level. It's just a matter of fact. And the past 3-4 weeks, we haven't seen it from him.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you guys. I know a lot of our people will hate this, but are you guys at all concerned? Because I definitely am, that the Seahawks are going to overcompensate and try to run the ball more now that their passing game is kind of fallen off?
I don't. I mean, I think they try to run the ball.
That scares the shit out of me.
I think they try to run the ball more because of part of what Derek was writing about there and others, that it looks like the defenses are trying to play them a little bit differently and maybe take away some of the deep passes. And the Seahawks are just we talked about this earlier in the year, that when the Seahawks feel like they can't throw deep and the passing game, they can't protect, those two things aren't happening, then they go to the run game. And what we all want is when that's happening, that they go to the short passing game. And they did that against Pittsburgh in the second half, and it looked great. And they did that a couple games early in the season. I would say even if you go to the second possession, the second series against the Rams, it was quicker passing. And then it just goes away. So I don't understand. I'm not as worried about them going to the run game, though. I don't know if, Evan, you've got a point of view on
Carolina's ranked as one of the worst DVOA run defenses in history.
Oh, yeah, they're terrible, but they're also terrible. The only thing they're good at is rushing the passer.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that they're going to overcompensate to the bad pass protection into the Minnesota game plan.
I don't think, Jeff, your concerns are completely unfounded, though, because we exited the Rams game, and this comment sort of flew under the radar, but Pete Carroll, one of his
I heard it. I know you're talking about.
Pete Carroll said something like, I really wish we had run the ball more. And that's not a great takeaway coming out of the Rams game. So, it's possible.
I saw Nate Carroll today with a comment saying, we're not a passing team.
What's this from?
I saw people were talking to Josh Gordon, and there were some Nate Carroll quotes, and one of them was asking why Josh Gordon isn't doing more. And his quote was, we're not a passing team. We like to run the ball.
Oh, God. That's pretty
That makes me want to blow my brains out. Wow. That is.
I'm pretty sure I saw that. I might be going crazy, but I'm like 99% sure I saw that.
I'm going to have to hear that for myself and in context before I go to.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter
on that one. So, I don't know. Like, I agree with you, though, Evan. I think we need to see Russell take a step forward. There's no doubt about it. And I think, heading into this game, look, if you can see the receiving crew start to come back together, if you can see, I don't care if they run the ball and they're effective doing it, but I just think they also need to have Russell be effective as well. I think I want to see minimum of 30 points this week against the Panthers. Like anything less than that will be disappointing.
I'm sorry. I have to go right back to this. And I quote, we're not a passing team. We're mostly a run team. We're probably top 5 in the league in terms of running the ball. Not true. Having 6 receivers that we all see as viable starters on our team makes it a challenge.
Yeah, that was the quote.
Are the Seahawks a top 5 running unit in the NFL?
Does he mean like they run the ball more than anyone else, or does he mean productive?
I mean, I think he's obviously thinking volume, but I think just that statement in it of itself is insane because obviously volume stats are.
Oh, I saw that and that jumped up in my brain.
This was Joe Fan who tweeted that.
The Seahawks are the 5th ranked rushing team in the NFL according to DVOA.
Okay, so that's higher than I thought actually. Okay. That's fair.
And they were 3rd as recently as a week or 2 ago. So
where are they in? I'm curious to know where Pro Football Focus has them.
They're number 1 in pass in DVOA, and they're number 5 in rush. So, anyway, I mean, look, I think when it comes down to it, guys, we've got a team that has beaten maybe the team that I think is the best team in football, which is the 49ers. I think they're better than the Ravens. Even though they lost to the Ravens, I would take the 49ers in a neutral field that was not a downpour like it was in Baltimore. But the Seahawks went in there and beat them, and I think they could have beat them by a lot.
It's kind of weird that the 2 best teams have Sherman and Earl. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I'm conflicted on that one.
There's a question here from Owen about whether Julio Jones will play against the Niners. Thanks for the donation, Owen. I don't know. I thought what I heard is, I know Calvin Ridley's out for the year. So Atlanta is passing better, but it's going to be asking a lot for Atlanta to be competitive in that game, especially in terms of defending the 49ers as opposed to the 49ers defending them. So, all right. Any other items we have not covered that we should cover, fellas, before we start wrapping up?
The Panthers almost decided to bench Kyle Allen, didn't they? And then they decided to stay with him last second heading into this game. The only reason I bring that up is because I saw Adam Schefter tweet it, but I just thought that was interesting.
He has been – I mean, they've been turning the ball over like crazy. I think they're 30th in the NFL or something like that in giveaways, and the Seahawks are like 3rd in the NFL in takeaways. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to hope that the Seahawks will get a lot of turnovers, and then they've got a really bad defense that is terrible at defending the run and also not great at defending the pass. So I would really like, as a minor goal, can we break Russell Wilson's 5-game streak of throwing interceptions? Yeah. I liked it a lot more when he had 1 pick.
Didn't that interception where it was like a Hail Mary at the end? It was
towards the end of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, that one kind of hurt me on like a moral level. Did that hurt you guys?
I will tell you the thing that hurt me the most in that game was not losing. It was watching Bobby Wagner try to defend Tyler Higbee.
Ugh,
that was a jump the shark moment for my Gen Xers and older, where man, Bobby couldn't keep up with Tyler Higbee, and Bobby did not have a good game last week. That was one of his worst games.
Are we ready to start talking about Bobby Wagner not being a great linebacker in the NFL yet? Or are we saving that conversation for a time when we're all a little more rational?
I'm plenty rational about it. That he has not. We've been talking about it all year. He has not been Bobby Wagner this year. I think that's very safe to say. And I think there's probably some various reasons for that aren't just about age or, declining physical capabilities. They've been playing different defenses that ask different things of that position, and I don't know that he's excelled in those changes. But the reason that bummed me out so much is because it did look like physically. I mean, this is a guy that used to chase down receivers 50 yards downfield. And I'm still holding out hope that during the off season, he like redoubles efforts and maybe comes back, like recaptures some of what he might have lost, but it might be gone. It might be. I mean, that's a reality that I think we've got to acknowledge, and not to be too, I have to represent Nathan here, but this is part of why he and I were pounding the table for trading him, 2 years ago. When he had a lot of value and before you gave him this large contract. So,
and somebody tweeted at me literally the night after the game, somebody tweeted me and was like, "Hey, Bobby hasn't played that well this year. What are the Seahawks going to do? Are they going to extend him following the season?" And I was like, "Buddy, I have some bad news for you. Who wants to tell him?"
Oh man, he makes $18 million.
Yeah, that hurts.
But Bobby had a really poor first half last game. They were like attacking his spot in the field, and he got a little better in the second half. He did tighten that up a little bit, but he's just it's so strange because he was so good last year. He was probably like the best linebacker, maybe one of the best defensive players in the entire league last year. And so he's just not making impact plays. And it's weird. I looked at this today. Bobby's leading the NFL in tackles, which shows how stupid that stat is.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two parts of his play here. It's the run stoppage, which he has actually been excellent at still. Pro Football Focus grades him as the second best run stopping linebacker in the NFL. I think that matches the eye test. The issue we're seeing with Bobby is coverage and tackling, which could be schematic issues, but unfortunately,
that's so weird. We should get him on the show, figure out what's going on there.
Have an intervention.
I don't
let him
think
defend
that
himself.
He's going to come on the show and talk about whether he's still a good player.
I know. But like the other day, I'm like, should they have given that money to Earl? I'm having.
No.
I know.
It works, dude. I'm so glad they didn't give the money to Earl. Earl has not been good this year. Like that was the right decision. They could have made additional right decisions. It was a right decision to trade Frank Clark. It was they did some things the right way. And I understand, I love Bobby Wagner as the player and as the person. He's a really good guy. There's so much to like about him. I'm so happy he's a Seahawk. From a just ruthless, if you're really doing roster management and cap management, I think they made a mistake there. I think that I hope it turns out well. I hope that, he shows out the next few years. But as of right now, it looks like it is not as bad as paying Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, what the Rams are stuck with paying those guys, but it's not good. I'd rather that money be going to Jaron Reed, for example.
Yeah, fair. Well, that game sucked completely, and we've talked about that. Can we just do 1 second? How awesome is Quandre Diggs?
You could argue that was John Schneider's best move of the offseason and the season. I think
you can argue it was the best move in the whole entire NFL this season. Given where,
considering the compensation,
I think the free safety trade for the 49ers is pretty damn good.
What?
I think the Emmanuel Sanders trade for the 49ers is really good.
Yeah. What was the compensation for?
I think I want to say is either 5th or 7th round pick.
That's fair. That's up there. But if you take away Quandre Diggs, that means you either have Tedrick Thompson or Delano Hill playing free safety.
Completely changes the year. Completely changes the season.
And not only that, you get him for 2 more years, having shed at like $4 million or something.
It kind of makes me wonder how Marquise Blair is going to, fight for a starting spot. But Bradley McDougald could actually be a player that is not a Seahawk for very long.
Yeah,
I'd assume McDougald's gonna exit stage right next year,
which is kind of sudden though, because even last year he had a really good year.
Yeah, and I think he's been fine, especially once Diggs came in the lineup. But I think with the offseason, I think Blair and Diggs, that's a safety tandem you could play with for a number of years. Diggs is still in his, he's mid-20s. I think people don't realize that because he kind of looks older too, but he's I think 26. So you've got four.
He is actually he's actually a little bit older. He's 28 years old.
Yeah,
oh, he is.
Yeah,
he's got 0 guarantees next year. He's in the last year of his deal.
Are you talking Diggs or
McDougal's in the last year of his deal.
He's 26 years old, dude.
Quandre Diggs?
Yeah.
What the heck? Over the Cap has his age wrong, man. That's weird.
Quandre,
You're right. That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, he's 26 years old. He
wonder
just seems
if
like a very likable player also. There's something, I don't know. Do you guys follow him on Twitter? There's something like unique about him.
Yeah. I mean, I think I got nothing but good things to say about Quandre Diggs.
I've never seen ex-teammates get so excited about a player every time he makes a play.
That's true. That has been really fun to watch.
I have never seen anything close to that. Like Darius Slay goes absolutely nuts.
Who, by the way, can come to Seattle. The invite is open if he wants to.
Well, and that is worth a second on. Like, how many of the Seahawks, the players that have come to the Seahawks this year, have just glowed about playing in Seattle? Like, you heard it from Clowney, you've heard it from Diggs, you've heard it from Josh Gordon, like player after player, and that you have to imagine they are telling everybody they know about what it's like to play in Seattle. And guess who's got a bunch of cap room next year? Like, it'll be interesting. I'm not a huge fan of building through free agency, but it'll be interesting to see if where the Seahawks decide to spend their money. And as of right now, like, I don't know. Like, for example, I don't know what Ziggy Ansah's like the prognosis is for his shoulder. If this is going to be another chronic thing, but if he's going to be some super cheap guy because no one wants him because he didn't produce that much this year, I'm not against giving that guy like $8 million. Like, I don't know that I'd give him more than that, but
I'd give him $8, not $8 million. That's a lot. Did you just suggest an $8 million contract for Ansah for next year?
Yeah,
that's a lot of money for like not doing shit. I mean, if it's incentive laden, sure, where it's like per sack or pressures, sure.
Yeah, I don't think you even need to do that, but I don't know. I think finding pass rush for this team is going to cost money, and I don't think you're going to be able to get a bunch of $20 million pass rushers. And then if Clowney is a guy that you got, if he's going to have this hernia surgery, there's no guarantee he comes back to be the player he was. So I start getting really uncomfortable paying him 22, 23 million bucks or whatever he's going to want. I like it better when they bargain hunt on the pass rush front and find guys that maybe can overachieve. But anyway, we're rambling at this point. I will just say another guy that we didn't talk about that also did not pop was Rasheem Green. Like, he's been playing well. I was hoping that with Ansah out that he was going to show off a lot more. We didn't get a lot from him in this game.
Really? Because I thought he flashed, but I want to check to see if Pro Football Focus backs that up. Does anybody know his pressures from last game? Anybody see that?
I don't.
Okay, you're right. He did have a really bad game. My God.
Yeah. I don't think
one of his worst games of the season, actually.
Yeah. I mentioned Diggs before. I thought Josh Gordon's comments were pretty cool today. I don't know if you guys saw those.
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said, I'd love to live in a place like this. I think I'm fortunate in general to have landed in a place like this with a coach like this. It's a real close, tight-knit, energetic group. And this is where I want to be. Seattle is amazing.
Well, I think just thinking about his story and his journey and his background, I think Seattle is probably one of the more welcoming and supportive organizations he probably could have joined from a culture perspective, at least. So I think that's where Pete Carroll's sort of value as a culture builder comes right in, accepting those types of players. So I think he's 100% correct.
It's like still one of the least told stories, not just for the Seahawks, but for the NFL in general, is Shaquem Griffin. Like, he came into a lot of fanfare, and it was like a little bit of like, almost like gimmicky, you know, right? Like everyone's just trying to make it a feel good story. And knowing the guy, like he doesn't want that. He wants to actually be a legitimate NFL player that's treated like any other NFL player. But the fact of the matter is you've got a guy with one hand who is turning into a pretty good pass rusher. And no one freaking talks about it. Like that's crazy. And not only does he have one hand, but he's like 230 pounds. And he's looking effective at defensive end. I mean, he only got 9 snaps in the last game, but in his 5 pass rushes, he got 2 pressures. He got a hit in a hurry, and one of them was what forced the pick 6 to Diggs. Like, this is a guy that I feel like the NFL is almost stupid, and the Seahawks definitely are, for not making a big deal out of this. Like, it's a great freaking story.
I think they need to play him more.
I don't know if they can. Like, he's 230 pounds. You put him in the game in any other situation than an obvious passing down, they're going to run right at him.
Yeah, but Brandon Jackson's playing 39 snaps or something. Just give him 5 of those. 6.
I hear you, man. I'm not even opposed. I mean, look at what Griffin did in the Eagles game. He caused that fumble on a running play. He is he is a playmaker. He was in college. Like, he just finds the ball. He doesn't always make the headiest, smartest play, and sometimes he's out of position. But you just let him set him loose and let him run after the ball. The guy makes plays. So I agree with you. I'd like to see him out there more. Point being, even with the role that they've given him so far, he's showing some value. So I definitely would like to see more of that. All right, guys, let's wrap there. Good as always to catch up. Thanks for everybody that's tuned in. If you haven't already, absolutely go and check out the merchandise on I'll retweet the link. I'll find it real quick and retweet the link for the merch. I'm doing that right now. I'm going to even put it in the chat pod for people that want to go right to it. Awesome. Great stuff. Great for the holidays. Not too late for stocking stuffers or any other holidays that you celebrate. And or join us over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Great to have more folks on board there. So take care, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. We will catch you all 10 a.m. Sunday morning, and we'll have a post-game show after that. So until then, go Hawks.